Okay, let's go ahead and get ourselves started. Welcome back. It's hard to believe it's actually session 7 already. Like the quarter flies by so quickly. I'm not sure how it feels from your perspective, but I can never believe that, it seems like we just got started, but at the same time, we're coming up on halfway through. It's amazing. It's like it's really, really quick. So we have several things that we want to go through and accomplish today. We want to roll out assignment 2 to you, one that I think you're going to hopefully find pretty fun and will enjoy working on. It'll give you a chance to sort of exercise some of the building modeling skills you've been developing in hopefully a fun way. We're going to talk a lot about multi-story buildings today, so sort of ratchet things up, be moving up to a higher level and just the complexity of how we stack up a building and get all the pieces to fit together, as well as starting to introduce some more elements. In particular, we'll be looking at stairs, which tend to be actually one of the more complicated types of architectural elements you can put together. Okay. We'll also go ahead and introduce something today called design options, which is something you're going to be using in the assignment. It's kind of a really cool concept, the whole notion that in a single model, we can actually consider several different alternatives and keep them alive at the same time. So it's kind of like having parallel universes, alternate realities. It's a kind of a really cool concept, but it's very, very handy. Because on most design projects, you actually not just only have a single alternative, you tend to have a couple different things that you're considering, and you want to give people choices. So a lot of cool stuff going on today. Okay. As we get started, are there any questions? Generally pretty good. For most people, like if you missed some of the sessions last week, we didn't hand out an assignment last week, we're going to hand it out today, and it'll again be due a week from today. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Let me start with just the assignment 2 intro, kind of roll you into that, so you start to get a sense of where we're going. And to do that, one of the best places to go is if you're, oops, not there. Hang on. Let me get my mirroring going here. There we go. Okay. So here's the story. Out there on the coursework website, you'll find some information about session 7, including the write-up, the assignment. And along with the write-up, you'll also find some starting point files. Again, these are good starting points to get going with. They have a lot of wall types and just different features that'll be useful for the project. If you happen to get started without the starting point, that's okay. You can always copy things in from the starting point. It's just there to help you get going. Let me open the assignment and kind of walk you through it just a little bit. Here's what's going on. We want to actually start looking at a multi-story model, and for this, we're going to have you work on a home. But it's not just kind of a big old home that has 4 bedrooms and 3 baths and all that kind of stuff. This is going to be like a weekend vacation home. So think of something that it's not all about day-to-day living. This is the place you go to on the weekend when you and your friends go up to Lake Tahoe for that ski weekend, and you're kind of getting away. So it can kind of be a little bit more fun than your average home because it's going to be biased towards good living spaces and places where you can hang out and congregate and just have a good time together. It doesn't have to necessarily be as utilitarian. Like you don't need a laundry room and like all these sort of very utilitarian things. Since you're going to be there typically for a couple of days at a time, it can be a little bit more free form, a little more creative than like your average kind of standard family home. Okay, so for the program, let's go ahead and take a look at it. The idea is it's supposed to be some sort of vacation or short-term retreat. It could be a family or group of friends, again, going to some sort of mountainous area, just hopefully to have like a nice weekend. The total size we have in mind is somewhere around 1,800 to 2,200 square feet, which is actually pretty big. That's bigger than a lot of small ranch homes. Again, we're not really thinking about a lot of bedrooms and articulating things in a lot of detail. We're thinking about a couple spaces that are probably going to be more special than the others. So for example, we want kind of the central meeting space, lounge, living room. That's the heart of the entertainment. So that could be a place where you sit around by the fire, you could be watching video games, you could be listening to music, just hanging around a table and gathering, whatever it is. But that's sort of the idea. It really is more based around that space. And there'll be some other spaces around it. Now, as you go through and do your modeling, we're going to talk about a lot of different kinds of spaces. Focus your modeling on the spaces that are most important to you. So if I'm telling you that it's all about the entertainment space, that's what the clients really are sort of interested in knowing about. Focus your modeling there. You may not need to put as much work into the storage room or modeling the garage. Focus it where it's going to have the biggest impact. So this space is really, to me, the heart of the design, kind of whatever you set up there. Okay. You'll probably have some food preparation space. that could be adjacent to the area. It doesn't necessarily have to be kind of a whole separate gourmet kitchen, but some place where you can kind of just store some groceries and just prep some food that's ultimately going to be shared by the people in there. You want a couple different sleeping spaces there. Not huge bedrooms, kind of 12 by 12. It's just really enough space to kind of roll out your sleeping bag or just kind of camp out. I sort of think about one as being the primary one with a queen size bed or a double bed, just some kind of relatively modest bedroom. Another one also, maybe for the second one it would have like 2 twin beds or a bunk bed or something like that. Just some space to kind of, have some space to sleep. You could also think about in your main living space, maybe some of that's convertible furniture so people can be sleeping in there too, just as you have a bigger crowd of people coming with you for the weekend. A couple small bathrooms. Again, you don't need the big glamour Hollywood spa tub and the 6-foot by 12-foot shower that 12 people can get into. You don't need that. It's just sort of a simple space to go ahead and wash yourself and kind of be ready for the day. Another space that I think would actually be sort of very useful would be, it's kind of the study space, the quiet space. Because as much fun as it is to hang with your 8 friends in the big room listening to the music and partying, it's kind of nice every once in a while to get off to the side and just, you got to take a call, you got to finish an assignment, you got to do whatever. Just that quieter space that sort of isn't in the main space. It can just be a little bit of a retreat. Maybe that opens off the main space and has some doors or something that's separated so you can join it in or keep it separate when you want to. But as much fun as it is to be partying all day, it's kind of nice to be able to retreat every once in a while too. So think about how you might be able to creatively do that. Storage space. We'll just need some space for those skis and tubes and off-season items, stuff like that. That doesn't necessarily have to be kind of primary. That could sort of be adjacent to the garage or down in the basement or something like that. A parking area. You could have a fully enclosed garage, or that could just be a carport. Just something to go, a place to sort of park the cars and keep the snow off them. And what's going to be sort of interesting about this is the notion that we're going to build on a hillside. And that'll sort of introduce some interesting kind of construction challenges if you've ever tried building on a hillside. And we'll talk about some of those today as we think about stacking up walls and how you have to sort of work with a hill in terms of placing your building. So idea is you're going to have some fantastic views of the lake or the valley below. You'd love to have some outdoor entertaining space like a deck or a terrace so that people can get out and kind of enjoy all that view and the starlight, things like that. Okay, but that's kind of the general program. Now, your clients have given you some examples of houses they like, and of course they're giving you make it like Falling Water, or make it like a Mies van der Rohe house, or very cool house, the curtain house that's back in Japan. But these are the design inspirations. Now, looking at these, what to do with these is say, okay, well, my clients kind of have this sort of modern aesthetic. They seem to like glass and openness and connection to the outside. Kind of take it at that level. For this assignment, no one's expecting you to come back with Falling Water or any of these houses. Just use them as points of design inspiration to help understand the style they're interested in. So if they came to you with this, you're probably not going to come back with a little log cabin in the woods. It's just somewhere, they seem to like glass, they seem to like openness, kind of a sense of modernness. Use those just as sort of just style points to help understand what it is that they have in mind. Okay. Actually, let's just stop and talk about the program for a second. So, how's that feel? That's like a fun one, or like, you have questions about that? Have most of you been on one of those vacation trips to the mountain lodge and have a good sense of what it's like? Okay. If you're good, yes. Again, as questions come up through the assignment, just ask and we'll try and clarify things. Just let's get all your questions answered so that there's no hidden assumptions. Okay. Hillside sites. We're going to talk about hillside sites, and hillside sites are a little bit challenging because dealing with a hill is a little bit different than dealing with flat ground. And we'll kind of illustrate this better, just in the model in just a second. But let's talk about hillsides and how you have to work with them. So the idea is I'm going to be cutting a section through a hill. There's some sort of hill, okay? And Down here somewhere is the fabulous lake and the water, and we're going to be sort of building something relative to that hill. So in terms of thinking about the hill, there's a couple ways you can use a hill. One way to approach a hill is you can go ahead and build a house or some sort of structure and put it all above the hill. Okay, so you can have these fantastic beams under here and these giant stilt-like columns that are supporting it. And here's my deck. And I'm just building it above the entire hill. So I'm sort of tying into the hill at the uphill side, but then going down the hill, I'm just sort of floating the whole house above, and it doesn't really get down into the ground at all. And that's one way to do it. A lot of houses are built that way, just essentially on stilts. Okay, so we can go through and do that. Maybe this is kind of a little flat and boring. Maybe, since I want to have some fantastic lake views, I'm going to have some big slopey roof and a lot of glass in here. I'm just going to have some interesting design that's sort of facing down the hill. Another way to approach the hill that a lot of people will use, though, is kind of hugging into the hill a little bit. And if you're from a slightly hilly site, like I'm from the Midwest, we have this thing we call a walkout basement, where half of the house is sort of buried in the hill and the other half is open to the outside. And what that would look like is, if we have a two-story house, we could go ahead and just cut a notch into the hill and actually build our structure so part of it's in, part of it's out. And maybe there's still a patio or something in here. And maybe the upper story is like this with a deck. But it's kind of the notion of, do you build it all above, do you notch it down in there? Either way kind of works. And if you're going to go through and notch things into the site, and I often like to do things like that, where I sort of think about having fantastic views at one side, but I'll live with the fact that I'm sort of back into the hill on the other side. The only thing you really have to watch out for that's sort of a big design consideration is, as you're going through and building your house, okay, so I'm going to draw sort of a bigger section of it right now. And if I'm building some house that has wooden shingles or something like that on the outside, when the earth comes down, okay, you don't actually want to have wooden structure below the grade, because wooden structure ultimately will rot. It can't really handle the moisture that's below grade. So the big challenge with this is ultimately saying, okay, we're going to have two different types of walls that are going to work together. Anywhere that is below the ground, we're going to have to put a concrete wall or some sort of retaining wall that we can waterproof. And above the ground, you can go ahead and have wood or stone or whatever it is. So we're going to spend a lot of time today looking at this whole notion of having two different walls, having sort of a wooden wall, but then below having some sort of thicker concrete wall. So wood up above and concrete down below. Again, why are we making that distinction? It's all because we want to have the structural support of the concrete. The earth actually pushes on the side of the building. Okay, and we need to resist that. So wooden walls can't really resist that very well. Concrete will be much stronger, so we'll have what's called a retaining wall. Okay, so that's part of it right there. But the other part is that we're going to be able to waterproof this thing. And we could try to waterproof the wood, but it's just a really hard thing that will ultimately break down over time. So it's much more common to go ahead and kind of stack those two walls together. Okay, so all this text that's over here really is just about sort of explaining that somehow we'll probably have concrete below grade, there'll be concrete up to the height of the grade, okay, or a little bit higher. Usually what ends up happening is we'll go ahead and give ourselves a couple feet clear, maybe 2 feet or something like that. You don't like the wood, you never like wood to get in contact with the earth, because that always leads to sort of a rot problem and wood starts hooking up. Okay, at the upper level, then we can get back to light frame construction like we used for the research station. You know, use some sort of studs and ultimately cover them with shingles or siding or stone veneer, or whatever it is you want to put up there. For the roof may be a little bit bigger for this one. For that research station, most of you were like on the order of 8 to 10 feet wide. As you're thinking about this house may be 30 feet wide or something like that. I don't know, you'll figure out dimensions are going to work. But for that, you'll probably start to have bigger rafters. That's what the 2x10s or the 2x12s are about. Just as we think about these structural elements that are going to be spanning across here, they're probably going to be bigger. And even for a house that's that wide, you'll probably start having some sort of an intermediate wall in here that's going to support those. Or if you really want some big, open, clear space, there's probably going to be some sort of beam in there that's supporting them. Because we wouldn't have sort of a single rafter spanning that entire distance. But again, don't worry about the structure too much. If you're a structure student, go ahead and think about that. Architecturally, even think about what you might have in mind, and we'll help you model that. But we'll let you still be pretty free about the whole notion of the structure and how the roof's supported, at least for this assignment. We'll get tighter on that one later. Okay. So, general questions about the construction? Try to get a sense. Can you sort of picture something in your mind, some vacation house? Okay. What I even recommend doing on this one is don't just dive into the model and start pushing walls around. Kind of even just imagine what this is going to be like. Maybe sketch out a couple little drawings of really what you think this great, fantastic living space is going to be like, and kind of build out around that. Because really, it's all about that living space. So start with that, and like the storeroom should be the last of the things you worry about. The garage, it'll come, but it probably isn't the featured part of your design. Go ahead and really focus on like the entertaining in what you're going to design to go ahead and create that. Okay, now as you go working, a lot of cool model components are available. We're going to sort of encourage you to go out to either Revit City or seek.os.com to find them. The other thing we're going to do is actually just set up a Dropbox folder where I'll put my big library of things I've collected over the last 10 years, and hopefully you can start sharing some of your components. So if you find the perfect LCD TV, or you find the perfect pool table, or you find the perfect curvy couch that has some really sexy shape that you think would really be nice for a lounge, put it in your model, but also start sharing them and throwing them into some central space where we can all start sharing those things. So we can really sort of have the best of everything. Okay. As you get started, there's going to be a file to get going with, and we'll open that up in a second together. It has some things in it. For what you should do, if you're approaching the course for 2 units, go ahead and just put the basic model together that has the basic building elements, the floors, the roofs, up to the stairs. Kind of build the shell of the house. Kind of build what a builder would build. Okay? Create some views to document your model, some floor plans, some roof plans, exterior elevations, things that are very similar to what you did in the last assignment. The difference is now we're going to actually ask you to put the dimensions, the labels, the tags, take it a little bit further in terms of really coming up with a really nice, well-documented set to explain your design intent. Okay. Also go ahead and put in a couple 3D views. It's really easy to put in camera views, so we'll talk about that. Put in some of those, especially in that big living space. Give us some camera views that show us what you have in mind. Okay, there's a title block for putting it all on there. Generally, things can be plotted at quarter scale, and we kind of work towards that. So for 2 units, just go ahead and get the basic building shell done, including the stairs. Kind of basically make it work. For 3 units, go ahead and kind of keep on enhancing it. So put in the infill objects, put in some furniture, put in the plumbing fixtures, put in a little bit of cabinetry. Just start flushing it out. Just make it a little more detailed in terms of what's going on. Just really explain the design vision a little bit more deeply. And then go ahead and create some plan views. Like we talked last time about creating some detailed plan views that were duplicates that would either highlight the furniture, highlight the plumbing. Just take it a little bit further in terms of documenting it. So a few extra views if you put in those different elements. For people who are taking for 4 units, the last thing we'll actually do is actually look at this issue of design options. So here's the deal, and we'll talk about this a little bit later today. Everyone likes to have choices. You want to basically give your client the ability to kind of think they have some choices, but you're not going to come up with 2 different house designs. Okay? What you're going to do is come up with some little difference between your primary proposal and some variation you could offer people. So maybe in the variation, the bedrooms have a slightly different arrangement, or maybe the bathrooms arranged a little bit differently, or maybe that like retreat rooms are, it opens to the main space a little bit differently. Don't think about designing 2 entirely different houses. Think about some small change, just something that's different enough that the client will understand it's different, okay, but not just creating an entirely different design assignment for yourself. So maybe the deck gets a little bit different, or maybe you have a garage instead of a carport. Just some sort of change between the 2 that you can go through and show the client. here's my primary proposal, and here's another option for you to consider here, and we can talk about really which one you prefer. Okay, so again, keep it modest in terms of what's going on. No one's expecting you to do a whole new design or a major re-architecting of it. It's really just some sort of variation, but it'll give us a chance to sort of play around with this notion of design options and how you make some spaces or some objects contingent so that they can be in or might not be in. Okay, just enough to get us started with that. So as you go through and do that, you can think about the cost differences. Often it'd be good to go through and present that to the client, but you're not required to do any estimating for this assignment. Just go ahead and be thinking about what the differences would be. So what you'll do is you're going to present your first design option, but you've already done that. You created your first design option for everything we did already. It's just for the second design option, you're going to go ahead and make those small changes, and we're going to create some alternate views. So maybe another floor plan of a section of the house that shows the change in the wall arrangement or the change in the fixture arrangement. Yeah, maybe a 3D view to also go through and illustrate it, but realize, yeah, keep it small. No one expects like a whole second set of plans. It's just sort of a little piece. And we'll show you an example of how, like, you can sort of set that up that way. Okay. Ultimately, submit a single DWFX file, and we should be in good shape. So, before we launch off on that assignment, like, any general questions about that? Is that sort of making sense? Yes?
For 4 units, we have to submit 2 3D models. We have, inside, different decks, different entrances.
Yeah, so what'll happen is, it'll still be one model. It'll have some of these features which show up in one option, don't show up in the other option. So what I would say is, we could have like even I'll show you later, we could even have a single camera view which points into the model, and you can turn on which version you want to show, the first one or the second option. So it's one model, and in that model, in one version in one view, you show one version, and in another view, a duplicate of the view, you show the other version. Okay, that sounds a little abstract. It'll make more sense after we show you how it works. Okay, because it's really just kind of cool. You can sort of picture things living in an alternate universe that you get to turn off some sides, which sounds very science fiction-like, but if you can picture that there's actually this fourth dimension that you can't see sometimes, it actually is a pretty easy concept. Okay. Other questions? Okay, great. Let's go ahead and get started then and dive into all this stuff. So again, where we're going to be going today is, if I can find it, well, I'll find it one way or the other. There it is. We're basically going to look at multi-story buildings and really how we deal with this issue of walls that stack and placing walls. Think about how floors intersect them, and think about something called building pads. Building pads are very much like floors. They actually, though, handle this situation where you actually are notching into the earth and you want to cut away some of the earth. Okay, so it's a floor that has a very special attribute. It understands how to cut away earth. Okay, as opposed to normal floors, which just intersect, but they don't actually do anything with it. And we'll talk about stairs. And finally, we'll finish up with some design options. So if you are ready to go, let's go ahead, and I'm actually going to open up just the starting point file for the assignment. You can open that one to go with today, or just open a blank one. But if you open the starting point file, why don't you, if you can, pull that down from coursework, open that up. You might as well get used to it. We'll kind of walk around in that one. You sort of get a sense of really what you're going to be working with for the assignment.